General Zaldar had stood on 1,000 battlefields, his war banners raised over the burning ruins of once proud civilizations. He had crushed empires, silenced entire species, and turned defiant worlds into nothing more than ash drifting through the void. There was no enemy that had ever truly challenged the might of the Korthan Empire. And yet, today, as he reviewed the intelligence report before him, a strange, unfamiliar sensation clawed at the edges of his mind. He had never known fear. Not in the way lesser beings did. But something in these reports, something in the way his officers shifted uneasily, unnerved him. "Explain," Zaldar commanded, his deep voice reverberating through the war chamber. The room was silent except for the hum of the unyielding wrath systems. Around him, the officers of his war council stood rigid, their scaled faces betraying only the slightest traces of unease. It was not their way to doubt a conquest. It was not their way to question an invasion. And yet, there was hesitation in the air. Saketh, the intelligence officer assigned to the upcoming invasion, cleared his throat and gestured to the holographic display. "This is Earth, General, a Category 8 death world, situated in a relatively isolated system on the Orion Spur. By all known logic, it should have been conquered long before it ever reached its current level of development." Zaldar studied the image. It was unremarkable. A world of blue and green, continents marked with cities and oceans teeming with life. He had seen thousands of such planets before they were broken beneath Korthan rule. And yet, Saketh continued, this world has remained unconquered, not due to its defenses, but due to its unpredictability. Zaldar narrowed his eyes. "Clarify." Saketh manipulated the display. "We have fought Deathworlders before, General. The Zenthari, the Orvax, the Kryn. All of them adapted to their harsh environments with efficient, brutal weaponry and superior biological traits. That is what we expect of a Deathworld species. But humans, they do not behave as they should." The holographic display changed, now showing human military technology. Zaldar's mandibles clicked in irritation. "This is primitive," he scoffed. "Ballistic weapons, combustion-based propulsion. Even their energy weapons are crude, inefficient. This should be a simple extermination." "That is what we thought as well," Saketh admitted. "And yet, General, the humans have something no other species has." Zaldar's gaze hardened. "What?" Saketh hesitated before speaking. "Madness." A murmur rippled through the chamber. Zaldar's gaze snapped toward his officer, mandibles flaring. "Elaborate." Saketh nodded grimly. "We have observed their battles, against each other and against other species. Humans do not fight for survival the way most Deathworlders do. They fight for other reasons. For ideology. For pride. For revenge. They do not simply seek to win battles. They seek to annihilate those who oppose them, often at the cost of their own lives. They use tactics that make no logical sense. They develop weapons not for strategic advantage, but seemingly for the sheer destructive thrill of it. And most disturbingly, they enjoy war." Zaldar studied the images in silence. He had heard such claims before. Many species bragged of their warrior cultures, of their fearlessness in battle. But this was different. "Show me proof." Saketh gestured again. The images shifted, replaced by battle footage. It was grainy, taken from orbital drones, but the message was clear. The first clip showed a human soldier, cornered, his weapon out of ammunition. Rather than surrender, he produced a small, handheld explosive, pulled a pin from it with his teeth, and hurled himself into a group of enemy combatants. The blast consumed them all. The second clip showed a battle in a ruined city. Korthan ground troops moved methodically, clearing the streets. A lone human emerged from the wreckage of a collapsed building, bleeding, limping, but grinning. He raised a weapon, a long tube-like device, and fired. A bright plume of smoke erupted from the launcher, and a moment later, an explosion obliterated an armored transport. The human was caught in the blast radius, his body thrown like a rag doll. And yet, as he died, his recorded audio played through the feed. Laughter. The third clip was a transmission. A human soldier sat in a dimly lit bunker, speaking into a camera. His face was bruised, his uniform torn, but his eyes burned with an unsettling amusement. To the aliens watching this, the human said, his voice rough but steady, I hope you're ready, because you're about to learn something real important about humans. He leaned in closer, and his smile widened. We don't fear death. We use it as a weapon. The transmission cut out. Silence filled the war chamber. Zaldar remained motionless, his mind processing what he had just seen. Soketh cleared his throat. General, if I may speak freely? Zaldar gestured for him to continue. I believe we have made a grave miscalculation. This will not be a conventional war. Humans do not think like other species. They do not fight like other species. If we proceed with this invasion, we must be prepared for something we have never encountered before. Zaldar exhaled slowly. He had crushed countless civilizations, faced endless resistance. But something about this unsettled him. He looked at the war map again. This planet, he muttered, will burn like all the others. He turned to his officers. Prepare the fleet. We deploy within the next cycle. Soketh hesitated. Sir. Zaldar's gaze was like cold steel. No species is unconquerable. No enemy is invincible. If the humans think their madness will save them, they will learn that discipline and order crush chaos every time. He turned away, his cape billowing behind him. Let them come, he said. We will see if they truly have no fear of death. 3 days later, the Korthan armada descended upon Earth. At first, it was as expected. The cities burned, their defenses crumbling under the might of the invasion. The human resistance was disorganized, chaotic, predictable. But then, something changed. Reports flooded in from the front lines. Unexplainable tactics. Humans fighting in ways that defied logic. Ambushes that made no sense. Explosions that seemed more suicidal than strategic. And yet, they were winning. General Zaldar stood on the bridge of the unyielding Wrath, watching the battle unfold through a holographic feed. His forces should have secured the planet by now. Instead, they were being pushed back. The screen flickered to life with a new transmission. The same human soldier from before. He was grinning again. Blood trickled down his face, but his eyes shone with reckless glee. Hey there, big guy, the human said. Still think this is gonna be easy? Zaldar's mandibles clicked together in irritation. You aliens always make the same mistake, the human continued. You come here thinking you're dealing with just another species. That this is just another war. His smile widened. But this ain't just a war. And we ain't just another species. The human raised something to the camera. A small, metal cylinder. See this? He pulled the pin. The feed cut to static. Zaldar's claws tightened into fists. For the first time in his long career, doubt crept into his mind. Had he just invaded a world he could not conquer? Let me know if you're ready for Section 2. General Zaldar had never known true frustration until now. The invasion of Earth should have been over in days. A week at most. But instead of bowing before the might of the Korthan Empire, humanity had responded with a level of defiance bordering on suicidal. Their strategies were illogical, their weaponry outdated, their military structure fragmented, and yet they were winning. Reports from the front lines were filled with contradictions. Cities that should have fallen were still holding out. Human forces, despite being outnumbered and outgunned, continued to push Korthan troops into retreat. Even orbital bombardments had done little to break their resistance. Zaldar clenched his claws as he reviewed the latest battle footage. The humans were not fighting like any species he had ever encountered. They were erratic, unpredictable, and worst of all, utterly fearless. He turned to Soketh, his intelligence officer. Explain this to me. No. Soketh hesitated before responding. General, I am not sure how to explain it. Our forces outmatch theirs in every measurable way. Yet they are not behaving as a rational species should. They are using madness, Zaldar growled. Yes, you've said that before. I want specifics. Soketh gestured, bringing up a series of battlefield recordings. The first showed a squad of Korthan warriors pinned down behind cover, exchanging fire with human soldiers. A moment later, one of the humans stood up, completely exposed, and hurled an explosive device directly into the Korthan position, at a range that guaranteed his own death. The explosion vaporized him along with the Korthan troops. Another recording showed a group of human soldiers under heavy attack. Instead of retreating, they gathered together, cheered, and charged straight into the enemy line with makeshift weapons, one of them even wielding a sharpened shovel. They fought like berserkers, laughing even as they fell. Zalthar's mandibles twitched. They should be running. No species fights like this unless they are cornered. That is what we do not understand, General, Soketh admitted. They are not cornered. They are fighting because they want to. Zalthar turned sharply. Want to? Soketh hesitated. Sir, we have intercepted their communications. They are excited. They speak of battle as though it is a sport, as though it is fun. Zalthar stared at the screen in silence. A new transmission arrived. One of the human resistance leaders. A female. Her face was smeared with dirt, her armor scuffed, but she looked amused. Hey, lizard boy, she greeted with a smirk. Still having fun? We sure are. Zalthar's claws curled into fists. Where is she broadcasting from? Soketh scanned the data. Somewhere in their capital region. Washington, D.C. Zalthar's mind raced. If they could capture one of these human leaders, they could break the resistance. Prepare an elite strike team, he ordered. I will lead them myself. Soketh hesitated. Sir, that may not be wise. Do it, Zalthar snapped. I will see this insanity firsthand. The assault on Washington, D.C. began at night. Zalthar's forces descended with precision, cutting through human defenses like a blade through flesh. Fires raged through the streets as Korthan warriors marched forward, eliminating resistance with brutal efficiency. Yet, despite their technological superiority, the humans refused to break. Zalthar had expected them to scatter, to flee in terror. Instead, they fought with reckless abandon. Soldiers fired from rooftops and alleyways, civilians set traps and ambushes, and even wounded fighters dragged themselves into the fray, laughing as they detonated explosives at point-blank range. It was chaos, and Zalthar hated chaos. He stormed through the ruined streets, his armor gleaming under the firelight. His elite warriors flanked him, cutting down any resistance in their path. They reached the human command center, a heavily fortified building. Zalthar raised his plasma rifle and fired, blasting open the entrance. Smoke and debris filled the air as he stepped inside. And then, laughter. He turned sharply. In the center of the room, surrounded by makeshift barricades, stood the human leader, the woman from the transmission. She grinned at him, even as his warriors aimed their weapons at her. Well, well, she said, resting a shotgun on her shoulder. Big Guy finally decided to show up. Zalthar stepped forward. Your resistance is futile. Surrender, and your species may yet survive. She chuckled. Yeah. You really think we're gonna do that? Zalthar growled. You are outmatched, outgunned, outnumbered. This war is over. She tilted her head. Funny. We were about to say the same thing to you. Before Zalthar could react, the walls behind her exploded. Dust and debris filled the air as more human soldiers poured into the room, weapons raised. Zalthar's warriors responded instantly, firing back, but the humans had planned this ambush perfectly. Gunfire and plasma bolts filled the space. Chaos erupted. Zalthar fought with the precision of a seasoned warrior, cutting down humans with swift, calculated strikes. But they kept coming. Even when wounded, even when on the brink of death, they refused to stop. He turned toward the human leader, only to find her gone. A new sound filled the room. A beeping. His eyes widened. Bomb! He roared. The explosion tore through the building, sending fire and shrapnel in every direction. Zalthar woke to darkness. His armor was damaged, his body bruised. His elite warriors were gone, either dead or scattered. He pushed himself to his feet, his vision swimming. And then, footsteps. He turned, weapon raised. The human leader stood before him, barely 10 feet away. She was bleeding, one arm hanging limply at her side, but she was still grinning. Zalthar aimed his rifle. This ends now. She smirked. Yeah, it does. She tossed something toward him. Instinct took over. He caught it. A small, metal cylinder. A grenade. His eyes widened. "Welcome to Earth," she said, and then she vanished into the smoke. The grenade detonated. Zaldar was thrown back, his armor taking the brunt of the blast. Pain seared through him, but he forced himself to remain conscious. He had made a mistake. This was not a war. This was something else entirely. The humans weren't fighting for survival. They were fighting because they loved it. And for the first time in his life, General Zaldar wasn't sure if he could win. Zaldar lay in the rubble, smoke curling through the air around him. His armor was scorched, cracked in places where shrapnel had pierced through its defenses. His body ached from the explosion, but pain was nothing new. He had endured worse. He had survived worse. But this war, was something he had never encountered before. The humans should have been running. Their cities should have been in flames, their forces broken. Instead, they were fighting with a savagery that defied all logic. And the worst part, they were enjoying it. Zaldar struggled to his feet, his claws tightening into fists. He was alone. His strike team had been wiped out in the ambush. The human leader had vanished into the ruins of their capital. And somewhere in the distance, gunfire and explosions still echoed through the night. This was not war. This was madness. He activated his communicator. "Socketh. Report." Static. Zaldar gritted his teeth. His forces were being overrun, his fleet struggling to maintain control of the skies. How was this happening? He took a step forward, his vision still hazy, when a voice cut through the smoke. "Hey there, lizard boy." Zaldar turned sharply, rifle raised. The human leader stood atop the wreckage of a collapsed structure, shotgun resting casually against her shoulder. Blood streaked down her face, but her grin was intact. "You still breathing?" she asked, tilting her head. "Impressive. I was starting to think you weren't as tough as they say." Zaldar aimed at her. "Surrender." "No." She snorted. "Buddy, I don't think you get how this works. You're the one who's surrounded." Zaldar's mandibles twitched. "You think this city will save you?" "My forces." "Your forces are getting their asses handed to them," she interrupted. "And you? You're standing in the middle of a death trap." Zaldar's eyes narrowed. She smirked. "This whole district, rigged to blow. Just waiting for the go-ahead." Zaldar glanced around. The shattered remains of buildings, the broken streets, the bodies. Was it possible? Had they set up this entire battlefield as a trap? He took a step forward. "If you detonate this city, you will die too." She shrugged. "Yeah, probably. But here's the thing. You and I both know you can't win this war. Not the way you're fighting it." Zaldar hesitated. "Explain." She leaned against the ruins, watching him. "You Korthan types, you fight clean, organized, tactical. You expect your enemies to do the same. You plan for it. But humans..." She grinned. "We don't fight wars. We survive them. And we make damn sure the other guy doesn't." Zaldar's grip on his rifle tightened. "Look around, General," she continued. "Your ships are in the sky, your troops are in the streets, and you've got all the firepower in the galaxy. But we're still here. We're still fighting. And that means we're winning." Zaldar exhaled slowly. "You are stalling." She grinned wider. "Yeah, and you fell for it." Zaldar's communicator crackled to life. "General, the fleet." A new sound filled the sky. A deep, unnatural hum. Zaldar's eyes widened as he turned toward the heavens. The orbital battlefield above Earth had changed. Human ships, primitive and scattered, had somehow pushed through the Korthan blockade. But it wasn't just their ships that worried him. It was what they had done to his fleet. The Korthan warships were falling, on purpose. The humans had hijacked their controls, forcing them to descend toward the planet's surface. Zaldar watched in horror as one of the largest warships, the Iron Dominion, plummeted from the sky, flames trailing behind it. It struck the Earth with a catastrophic explosion, wiping out an entire Korthan division. "They're crashing our own ships into us," Zaldar whispered in disbelief. The human leader chuckled. "Yup. Wild, right? You wouldn't believe how easy it is to convince your guys to panic when they see humans running at them with explosives." Zaldar's blood ran cold. They weren't just fighting humans. They were fighting a species that had turned death into a weapon. He looked back at the human, his mandibles clicking in frustration. "You are insane." She winked. "And you still don't get it." Zaldar's communicator buzzed frantically. "General." "Orders." "What do we—" An explosion rocked the city as another Korthan warship crashed into the outskirts. Zaldar made a decision. "Fall back," he commanded. "Regroup at the primary landing zone. We are retreating." There was a long pause on the other end of the communicator. Then, "Sir." "Do it." Zaldar snapped. He turned back to the human leader. She didn't look surprised. If anything, she looked pleased. "Smart move," she said. "Not a lot of your kind figure it out this quick." Zaldar exhaled sharply. "This is not over." She grinned. "Oh, I'm counting on it." Then, before he could react, she threw something at him. A small, metal cylinder. Instinct took over. He dodged, expecting an explosion. But there was no blast. The object clattered to the ground and rolled to a stop at his feet. A human ration bar. Zaldar stared at it, then back at her. She was already walking away, shotgun still slung over her shoulder. "See you next time, General," she called over her shoulder. "Bring a bigger army." Zaldar watched her disappear into the ruins, his mind racing. This was not a war. This was something far worse. He had invaded a world that did not fear death. And for the first time in his life, Zaldar understood what it meant to lose. Zaldar stood aboard the bridge of the Eternal Wrath, watching as the last of his troops retreated from Earth's surface. The evacuation was chaotic, wounded warriors stumbling into transport ships, officers barking frantic orders, and the hum of overloaded engines filling the air. This was not how he had envisioned this campaign ending. The humans should have been nothing more than another species to conquer, another footnote in the ever-expanding history of the Korthan Empire. Instead, they had done the impossible. They had turned the tide. They had forced a Korthan retreat. And they had enjoyed every moment of it. Zaldar clenched his claws as the Eternal Wrath disengaged from low orbit, the blue and green sphere of Earth shrinking on the view screen. Explosions still flickered across the surface, human forces wiping out any Korthan presence left behind. The Korthan fleet, once an overwhelming force of destruction, was now a ragged collection of damaged ships. Some had been hijacked and turned into weapons against their own kind. Others had simply been torn apart by reckless human attacks, ships used like battering rams in ways no rational species would ever consider. The humans didn't fight to survive. They fought to win. And they didn't care how much destruction it took to get there. Soketh approached, his posture stiff. "General, we have suffered catastrophic losses. High Command is demanding an explanation." Zaldar exhaled slowly. "They will have their explanation when we return." Soketh hesitated. "Sir, I must ask, what happened down there?" Zaldar turned, meeting his officer's gaze. For the first time in his long career, he struggled to find words that could truly capture the experience. "They are not like any species we have encountered," he finally said. "They do not break. They do not surrender. They enjoy the battle, Soketh. They thrive in it." Soketh shifted uncomfortably. "That is deeply unsettling." Zaldar let out a short, bitter laugh. "Yes. Yes, it is." The ship shuddered as the fleet prepared for the final jump away from Earth's orbit. Reports streamed in, damage assessments, casualty counts, the last desperate transmissions of stranded Korthan soldiers still fighting on the surface. One particular transmission caught Zaldar's attention. A live broadcast. He ordered it to be displayed on the view screen. The human leader's face filled the screen, battered and bloodied but grinning as always. She was surrounded by her fellow warriors, standing atop the wreckage of a Korthan war machine. Smoke billowed behind them, the city around them still ablaze. "Leaving so soon," she taunted. "And here I thought we were just getting started." Muffled laughter echoed from the humans around her. Some of them raised weapons in mock salutes. Others simply grinned, eyes alight with something terrifying. Excitement. Zaldar didn't respond. He simply watched as the human leader leaned toward the camera. "Here's the thing, General," she continued. "You're gonna tell your people that Earth is too dangerous, that it's not worth the fight." She tilted her head, smirking. "And they're gonna ignore you. They're gonna come back." Her smile widened. "And when they do, we'll be waiting." The transmission cut out. Silence filled the bridge. Zaldar closed his eyes. She was right. The Korthan Empire would return. High Command would see this retreat as a failure that needed correcting. They would send another fleet, larger and better prepared. They would throw more soldiers, more ships, more weapons into the fight. And it would not be enough. Zaldar had seen the truth firsthand. This was not a war of conquest. This was a meat grinder. And the humans were built for it. He turned away from the screen, gazing once more at the fading image of Earth. The Korthan Empire had spent centuries believing themselves to be the most dominant species in the galaxy. They had crushed countless civilizations, absorbed countless worlds into their empire. But now, they had encountered something different. Not just another species. A Death World species. And they would never forget the lesson they had learned. Zaldar spoke, his voice low but firm. "Set course for High Command. Maximum speed." Soketh nodded, issuing the order. The engines roared as the Eternal Wrath prepared to jump into hyperspace. As the stars blurred around them, Zaldar exhaled slowly. This war was not over. It had only just begun. And when the Korthan Empire returned, they would face something far more dangerous than a simple human army. They would face an entire planet that lived for battle. And this time, Zaldar wasn't sure anyone could win.